Folks, the CalDigit TS5 is by far the most impressive Thunderbolt dock that I've ever used. And if you're a professional that needs tons of I/O, 20 ports in total, then this is the dock potentially for you. Especially so if you're already steeped in the Thunderbolt 5 ecosystem. But even if not, it's backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 4 and Thunderbolt 3, and you'll be set whenever you're ready to make the leap to Thunderbolt 5. The TS5 builds on a legacy of the TS3 Plus and the TS4, and it provides a much bigger leap over the TS4 than the TS4 was over the TS3. In this video, we'll consider the downsides, the upsides, and everything in between. But first, let's unbox. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go ahead and unbox the TS5 Plus. So you have your power cable. Next, let's see what's in this little box here. There's your Thunderbolt 5 cable, a pair of dark gray rubber feet strips for horizontal orientation. Here's that Thunderbolt 5 cable, 240 watts capable. And then you have this massive power supply here. I mean, this thing, it's a very nice power supply. I will say that at least it's not just like one of those typical off-brand power supplies. You have the CalDigit logo on it, and it's 330 watts of power, which is crazy. We'll talk more about that a little later. So here is the actual TS5 Plus, and it features that same familiar CalDigit ridged aluminum design. And right off the bat, I can tell you this is a lot larger than the TS4. And not only is it larger, but it's also much darker. CalDigit calls this space black, and appropriately it matches the space black of the MacBook Pro. And the feet this time are no longer translucent, but they're dark gray. And the feet aren't just for looks, they allow you to orient the CalDigit TS5 Plus in horizontal mode, just like previous CalDigit docks. So it looks very similar to the TS4 and the TS3 Plus before it, but it's obviously much larger and much darker. So here's the TS4 next to the TS5 Plus. You can see just how big of a difference that is. And for emphasis, here is the TS3 Plus. The TS4, of course, was bigger than it, and the TS5 is a noticeably larger dock. So you can see not only is it taller, but it's wider and it's longer. So no matter how you orient it, the footprint of the CalDigit TS5 Plus is going to be noticeably larger. Now let's talk ports. So you get micro SD and SD card, UHS 2. So that's going to give you speeds that are similar to the built-in SD card reader on the MacBook Pro. On front, you have a 3.5mm combo jack. You have the dual USB-C ports, but this time a 36 watt power port. You also get a USB-A port on front, and of course the CalDigit logo with the TS5 Plus text and your little LED indicator for when you're connected to the uplink. Now on the rear, you get two 3.5mm ports, one for headphones and one for microphone. You get a DisplayPort 2.1 port thanks to Thunderbolt 5. And now you have three 10 gigabit per second USB-C data ports, whereas the TS4 only had one, so you get two additional ports. You also get four 10 gigabit per second USB-A ports, two of them power down when not connected to a host computer. And you get two 36 watt downstream Thunderbolt 5 ports, which is 2 times faster than Thunderbolt 4. Here's a Thunderbolt 5 SSD connected directly to my MacBook Pro, and it's insanely fast. And notice when it's connected to the TS5 Plus, you just notice a little dip in the write speed, but the same read speed. And the Thunderbolt 5 upstream port that connects to your Mac supplies up to 140 watts of power. You also get 10 gigabit Ethernet and your 330 watt DC input. So this 330 watt power supply is, like I said, beastly, but here's the cool thing. The TS5 Plus supports full speed 140 watt host charging even with every other device connected and charging at max speed. there's still enough power to go around. So even when I have all the ports connected like this, I have like 4 SSDs connected, I have my iPad Pro, I have my iPhone, I have a couple of lights connected, I have a whole bunch of jump drives and all sorts of other things connected. I mean, look at this. This is ridiculous, right? Obviously, I'm just doing this just to prove a point. But you could see delivering roughly 36 watts of power to the iPad. I have this light charging and the other light's connected to the port that doesn't charge while the host is offline. And that's good for connecting devices that you don't want to be powered while not connected to your Mac. But you can see when I plug up my Mac, look at the power wattage provided, 140 watts, and that's despite all these other devices connected and delivering power at the same time. Yeah, your host connection doesn't throttle down. So for instance, with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, it's always going to charge at the fastest speed. And then finally, you have your Kingston lock slot for locking down your CalDigit TS5 Plus. So let's briefly compare it to the TS4. So the front panel looks almost exactly the same, a little bit different orientation there, but the main difference is that front USB-C port delivers 36 watts this time instead of just 20 watts. So you can see you get much faster charging to an iPad Pro, for instance. Now the TS4 only had a single USB-C data port on the rear, but here with the TS5 Plus, you get 2 additional USB-C data ports. You also go from DisplayPort 1.4 to 2.1, which is a substantial increase in bandwidth. And of course, on the TS4, you had a host connection that could deliver up to 98 watts of power to its host computer. So when I just run a quick command here in terminal, you can see the state of charge and you can see the wattage 98 watts provided to my MacBook Pro. But here on the TS5 Plus, this can deliver up to 140 watts, which is the maximum speed that the 16-inch MacBook Pro can charge at. So you can charge it at full speed. And that's a big difference. Also, your downstream Thunderbolt ports on the rear can now deliver up to 36 watts instead of just 15 watts on the TS4. So that gives the TS5 Plus a total of 3 36-watt capable USB-C ports. But of course, the biggest difference is with the Thunderbolt upgrade going from Thunderbolt 4 on the TS4 to Thunderbolt 5 on the TS5 Plus. And you can tell the difference when connected with a Thunderbolt 5 SSD. And the TS5 Plus gives you significantly more bandwidth. And the TS5 Plus now features a 10 gigabit Ethernet port, which is 4 times faster than the 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port on the TS4. So here you can see me verifying that 10 gigabit connection on my MacBook Pro. And this faster connection is obviously really great when connecting to a 10 gigabit Ethernet NAS, for instance. Or say you have a fiber connection with really fast internet, you'll benefit there as well. So yes, the TS5 Plus, a massive improvement over its predecessor, but the changes don't stop there. There's actually dual USB controllers. So on the front panel, you see these 2 USB ports. Those, along with all the USB-A ports, are assigned to one controller. And then there's a second USB controller that's responsible for all of the USB-C ports, including the Thunderbolt ports on the rear of the TS5 Plus. And the second controller shares bandwidth with the 2 SD card slots on the front as well. So how does this benefit the end user in a real world situation? Well, let me illustrate for you. So I have 2 SSDs connected to these front USB-C ports, which reside on the same controller, right? So I'm running speed test for both of those at the same time. Notice the speeds definitely not living up to their potential there when running concurrently, because the bandwidth is saturated because they're both on the same controller. And you can see that in system information, you see controller A, the Extreme SSD and the T9 are both assigned to that controller. But what happens when I keep the T9 on the A controller and move the Extreme SSD to the B controller? What do we see then? Well, we see in system information, the T9's on the A controller and the Extreme SSD's on the B controller. So in other words, these 2 devices will no longer be competing for that 10 gigabit bandwidth allocation. Thus, that means that they can run faster concurrently, which obviously has various practical applications that can benefit the user. Now, for display connectivity, Thunderbolt 5 brings a lot to the table, namely the ability to provide up to 120 gigabits a second for display bandwidth, and that's made possible by bandwidth boost. Normally, you have 80 gigabits per second, bidirectional data, 2 in one direction, 2 in the other. But when bandwidth boost kicks in, one of the incoming bandwidth lanes are allocated to the outgoing for 120 gigabits a second. So with that increased amount of bandwidth, you're getting higher resolution capability. So being able to connect to higher resolution displays, for instance, and you're also getting the ability to run displays at a much higher refresh rate. For instance, 4K at up to 240 hertz, depending on your Mac, or multiple displays at higher refresh rates, depending on the Mac that you have it connected to. So, should you consider the TS5 Plus? Well, the biggest, by far, barrier to entry is going to be the price. And at $500, the price is pretty steep. I have to admit, this is not going to be an impulse purchase by any stretch of the imagination. $500 is a lot of dough, so you really are going to have to determine whether the benefits of this dock justify the price for you. There's other downsides though. Obviously, it's not a huge thing, but the CalDigit TS5 Plus is significantly larger than its predecessor, so if you're really about optimizing space, that is something to consider as well. And also, if you're connecting a USB-C display, it's going to require that you go through the Thunderbolt port on the TS5 Plus. Not generally a problem, but it's annoying because you only have 2 downstream ports. And for some, the lack of a native HDMI port on the rear. Personally, I think this is the right call to avoid HDMI on this dock because there's all sorts of different compromises that you have to go through to make that possible, whereas DisplayPort is native to the Thunderbolt spec, so it just makes more sense that way. But like I mentioned before, you only get 2 downstream Thunderbolt 5 ports, and while in most cases that'll be enough, I would have liked to have another Thunderbolt 5 port. In fact, the TS5, the regular version, includes 3 downstream ports. Thumbs up if you want to see me compare the regular TS5 to the TS5 Plus. But despite those downsides, there are significant upsides. One of the most obvious is that you have a 1 cable connection that can connect to everything at once. Perfect for the MacBook Pro. And with Thunderbolt 5 connectivity, you get much higher speeds with Thunderbolt 5 peripherals, and it's backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 3. You get DisplayPort 2.1. Obviously, you get bandwidth boost when connecting with Thunderbolt 5 for high resolution or high frame rate displays, and it gets you 140 watt fast charging to your MacBook Pro. And here's the thing, there's no wattage throttling, so you can connect all these devices like this, for instance, and still be able to charge your MacBook Pro at full speed. You get 7 downstream USB-C ports in all, 2 on the front, 5 on the back. Of course, not including the upstream Thunderbolt 5 port. You get 3 36 watt USB-C ports, 1 on the front, 2 on the rear with those Thunderbolt ports, 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is going to provide you with much faster speeds for connecting to a NAS or even high-speed fiber, and you get dual USB controllers, which is obviously going to be a great thing when moving files between multiple SSDs, with each having access to their own individual controller for maximum bandwidth. You get a larger but sleek design with that space black anodized exterior that matches the MacBook Pro. You also get a silent design thanks to that aluminum and the heat dissipation, so there's no need for a fan. And of course, you get the dual orientation. You can have it in vertical or horizontal mode if you wish to do so. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the CalDigit TS5 Plus. Obviously, it's not perfect and it's super pricey, but hey, it's pretty good. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Thumbs up if you appreciate videos like this. This is Jeff Benjamin with 9to5Mac.